Hi everyone, I am Chris, this is Simply Classic, and today we're going to do another oldie but goodie, and by far it is one of our best-selling patterns, and that is the Julie. I think it's just a great size bag. You've got pockets in the front and in the back for cell phones, keys, whatever else you may need, and it is just an easy bag to make, believe it or not. I mean, it's got a lot of style, and it's just perfect size. So I have two here. I have one in faux. This is our faux ostrich in the gray blue color, which we actually now have back in stock. And then this here is one of our leather kits. This is a blue Epsom leather that is just amazing to work with. We're going to use, the pattern is written to use connectors, usually D-rings. You can certainly use O-rings as well, but it's written to do the hidden strap connectors like this and then to attach the handles to that. But what we're going to do instead in this video is we're going to do the handles like this. We're actually going to hide the handle in the bag and kind of do the strap connector and handle in one. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. But other than that, the bag of course has a front pocket. It has a matching back pocket. And cell phones, which I don't have it on me, works perfect. I mean, you can slide your cell phone right in there. It is just easy to do, fits perfectly. Of course, you have purse feet on the bottom. We have a nice zipper top. And then inside, we have two slip pockets. Always forget to take the paper out. We have a zipper pocket and a slip pocket on one side, and then on the other side we have a slip pocket, and then of course our key fob. So it's really a, like I said, great bag, one of our best-selling bags. We really appreciate your support with it, and we're going to run through the tutorial. I have taken the liberty of doing some of the things already, like the handles and some of the pockets that you've seen me do 100 times before, but we're going to run through the basic construction of the bag, including these handle / hidden strap connectors all in one. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start by going over pattern pieces. Now, I've already done my handles, and I'm doing them in our camel solid faux leather. I did 2 lines of stitching on these just to, give a little bit of interest since we're going to be doing the handles the way we are today. So I've got those completed. I also have my bottom completed. So I put my purse feet on there, and then just like we did in the last Allie B video, I went ahead and put my deckable heavy, installed my purse feet, and put some foam on as well, and then just stitched all the way around that. And it just gives it a really nice appearance. So the bottom is done and ready to go. All right, we have 2 middle base pieces. Now, on this middle base piece, you're going to want to cut some Decoville light, draw a line a 1/2 inch from the top edge, and you're going to put your Decoville light right up against that line. You can see the bottom of this has no stabilizer, it's just the top. Okay, we have that on both pieces. We have our middle pocket piece, and we have 2 of those. On this one, you're also going to put Decoville light. I drew a line a 1/2 inch from one short edge, and then put the Decoville light up against that line. There's more space on this side than there is on this side, and that's okay. So it's not going to be centered, but that's what we want. We have our 2 side pieces, and the side pieces are actually fairly large. Okay, we have Decoville light on the back of these, and the Decoville light is centered. It's a 1/2 inch away from all the edges just to keep it out of seam allowances. Okay, so 2 of those. We are not going to cut handle connectors because, again, we're just going to skip that part. So don't worry about those. We have 2 upper lining pieces, and our upper lining pieces have the Decoville light outside the seam allowances all the way around. Okay, 2 of those. We have 2 lining pieces, and the lining pieces are backed with a woven interfacing. I went ahead and found the center of both pieces, just so I don't have to do that as we're going through. So make sure you find your centers on that. I went ahead and already did my key fob, which you've seen me do key fobs 100 times before, so that's complete. I have my 2 slip pockets completed. You've seen me do that 100 times before as well. Easy peasy. I have a zipper overlay, which I've already put my double-sided tape on the back. And then I went ahead and attached my zipper to my zipper pockets, put my double-sided tape on so it's ready to go. When you make your zipper pockets this way, you can see the right side of your zipper with the wrong side of your pockets, and then the wrong side of the zipper with the right side of the pockets. I also have 2 lining pieces for my exterior pockets, again backed with woven interfacing. And then I have my zipper plackets. So for zipper plackets, I have 2 main, I have 2 lining, and I put 1/2 inch double-sided tape on all the short edges of both pieces. All pieces. So there's really very little hardware for this bag. If you are not going to use strap connectors, like we're not going to do in this one, then all I'm really using is purse feet and zipper pull, you know, for zipper pockets and for the top, and that's about it. So the bag hardware can really be kept to a minimum. So we're going to go ahead and start by attaching handles and get our exterior put together. So let's get sewing. Okay, we are going to start out by marking our side pieces. And in the pattern, I give you measurements as to how far away from the sides to measure and how far down from the top. Now, a couple things. This piece is a 1/2 inch taller than it is wide. So make sure you have it configured correctly. If not, your bag's going to be a little shorter than what you intend. So I always write the word top just so that I don't have any confusion when I do this, because I've been known to do that before. The other thing is that if you're going to use this method with the rivets, actually putting the handles, connecting the handles to the bag directly and using rivets, you're going to come down an additional 1/2 inch from the top from what I have in the pattern. Okay, side measurements are the same, but the top measurement, you're going to add a 1/2 inch. And what we're going to end up doing is cutting slits right along these lines, right in between these 2 lines we made here and right along this line. So go ahead and take your craft knife and a cutting board and just go ahead and make these cuts. And always make sure if you do anything, you're going to do it a little smaller than what you need starting off, and then if you need to make it larger, you can. It's always better to go a little smaller because you cannot undo if you cut it wrong or if you cut it too large. Okay, once we do that, we're just going to set this aside. Okay, you're going to repeat that for the other side piece, and we're going to set both of those aside. We need to work on our pockets. So take your middle pocket piece. Now the top of this piece is where the decoville is furthest from the edge. Okay, so take that, take your lining piece. We're going to clip them right sides together, and then we're going to go ahead and stitch. From here, open this up. You're going to let the seam allowance do what it wants, which means it's going to be going towards the lining. And I'm going to top stitch on the lining. From here, go ahead and join the bottom of your lining and the bottom of your pocket together. Go ahead and clip, and that should have this very top part folding right against the edge of your decoville light. Okay, we just don't want any linings peeking through. So we have a nice edge here with a little bit of the right side showing on the back. So now we're going to top stitch along this edge. Once that's top stitched, take your middle base piece. Now the top of your middle base piece is the part with the decaville. So lay that down, and you're going to lay your pocket right on top. And you're going to line the bottom edges. Go ahead and clip. And then we're going to baste this in place. And then we have our pocket completed. So I'm going to repeat the same process to complete the other pocket, and then we'll move on. Now that I have my pocket pieces completed, I'm going to take my side piece, one of my side pieces, and I'm going to put it right side together. Now make sure that, of course, your slits are already in here. If you are using the strap connectors are also going to already be in here. But since we're just going to attach the handle directly to the bag, we're doing it a little bit different. So I'm going to make sure that everything's facing up. That should be facing up. Put this right sides together. Now, if your side piece did get turned and you put your slits on the wrong side, no worries. What's going to happen is let me show you. If, let's say, accidentally you did this, just cut this pocket off and your bag will just be a little shorter. Okay, so it's not the end of the world. The bag's not all ruined. Just make that little adjustment and you will be good to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch. And when you open this up, the seam allowance is going to want to go towards the side piece because we have several layers here in the middle. So let it do that, and we're going to top stitch on the side. Go ahead and attach your other piece, which will either be your front or your back, depending on which side you put your bag tag on. And we're going to do the same thing. Go ahead and open this up, and again, your seam allowance is going to want to go towards your side piece. Let it do that, and we're going to top stitch. This is what we have so far. We're going to repeat the process and go ahead and attach our other side piece. ahead and clip. Open it up and top stitch. Again, the seam allowance will go towards the side. For the last step, we're going to go ahead and attach this last side. And then when we top stitch, we're going to be top stitching in the tunnel. But this is large enough that you can do that. It's not going to give you too much of a problem. Shouldn't. So let's stitch first. So now open this up. Of course, your seam allowance is going to go towards your side piece. Go ahead and slide it in from the back. And top stitch. Now, if you need to do this in 2 passes, you can certainly do that. And what I mean by that is maybe you start from the bottom, you go up to as far as you can reach, and then you turn it around and go in the other direction. Some machines, this is a little easier to do than others, depending on the throat of your bed and the height of your machine. So just do what you can here. We have that completed. So now from here, we're going to go ahead and install our handles. And actually, before I even do that, I'm going to put my bottom on first because it's going to give me less to contend with when I do put the handles on. So I'm going to match up my seams. Okay, so I have seams here. Now I have some bulk. Obviously, because, you know, I've got several layers here. I'm going to go ahead and cut that bulk out of these seam allowances. It's going to help some. And then I want to find the center of the sides and the center of the front and back. Now, this is the one spot that people tend to do incorrectly because you think that this longer piece here is your front or your back, but the reality is the pocket is the front and the back. So when you go to put your bottom on, you need to make sure you put your bottom on correctly. And I've done it where I put the bottom on in the wrong direction. So we're going to make sure we do it right. Match my centers, match my seams. Go ahead and mark that seam. Okay, so here's what we want to do. The long portion of the bottom is going to not go against the long portion of the bag. It's going to go against this pocket piece. Okay, so let me mark the center of my bottom. Mark all the sides. Even the short side. Okay, so then take one of the long sides and place it against the pocket, one of the pocket pieces. And go ahead and clip. Now, when you sew this on, you're going to sew, you don't want to sew all the way to the edge of the bottom. You're going to stop right at the edge of your decaville. So you're going to sew from the edge right here of the decaville, right where that edge is, all the way across, and you're going to stop over here at the edge of the decaville on this side. Don't sew past that. So I'm going to start right there on the edge. Put my needle in. Okay, and I stop at the other edge. I'll just show that to you. So you see here, get the bag out of the way. I stopped right there at the edge of the decaville. Did not sew past that. Okay, so we're going to line up the center on the other side, and we're going to repeat that process. And throughout the whole sewing of the bottom, we're never going to sew past the edge of the stabilizer. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this over and then stitch. Make sure I'm lined up. From here, you need to clip the main part of your bag, and you're going to clip it right up to your stitch line. So don't worry about where your bottom is. Just look at where your stitch line ends. So in my case, mark this so you can see it. My stitch line is right here, and that's the very end of the stitch line. So I'm going to make a clip in the bag, not the bottom, just the bag, right up to that stitch line. Okay, just like that. So you see the bottom at the bottom here peeking out, but I'm going right to the stitch line. I'm going to do the same thing on all the other corners. And what that's doing is it's making little relief cuts so that now the sides will turn and we can clip the side. See how this will turn? It's going to form a triangle there. And we'll be able to clip in the centers. So mark the center, you had already marked the center. Go ahead and match your centers. And clip. So when I stand this up, you'll see that now a little square essentially has been cut out, and we're going to stitch from our previous stitch line straight across to the other side. Okay, we're going to do that on both sides. So let me make sure this is matched up. I'll do the same thing on this side, match my centers. And then I want to stitch, so previously I stitched from the inside, but this time I'm going to stand the bag up, and I'm just going to push this down, and I'm just going to stitch right across the top here. And if your stitches aren't quite matching, you can actually just turn the bag and go ahead and take a few stitches down the long side just to make them all neat. Okay. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So stand your bag up. And if you need to, you can turn and take a couple stitches in the other direction. So from here, I'm going to cut my seam allowances back so I don't have all these ends poking. I'll cut it back to about 1/4 inch, and then we'll put our handles on. I have the handle on one side, and we're just going to go ahead and repeat that process on the other. I'm sitting here at the cylinder arm machine because it is easier to use it if you're going to be doing the method of putting the handles in, because you put them in after you sew the bag together, so it's a lot easier with the cylinder arm machine to get the bag in. So the first thing you're going to do is to take your handle, make sure it's not twisted, and you're going to slide a short end up into the bag, and you're going to do the same thing on the other. Okay, so your handle will be facing down, and then on the inside, you want to make sure that you see about 1 inch of your handle. So I'm going to measure that to make sure, and that's just going to ensure that your handle's even with the other, and you have enough place to put a rivet when we're done. Okay, so that side looks good. Let me check this side. I'm going to pull this end out just a little bit. Okay, from here, we are going to stitch on our handle, and we're going to stitch between our top stitching lines. Don't overstitch on your bag, okay? You want to stay right on the handle, and you want to stay as close to the slit as possible. So I'm going to zoom you in, and we will go ahead and get the bag on here and take a look at how we sew it. Okay, so I'm stitching on the handle, and I'm stitching right underneath the slit. So you can see how close to the slit that I stitched, and I didn't overstitch on my handle itself. So we're going to repeat that process for the second. Second side here. Okay, so we're going to move over to the other machine and I'll show you how to measure for rivets. Before we turn the handle up, sometimes if you stitch too far away from the slit, and I did pretty good on this one, when you go to turn your handle up, you're going to get a tuck here. And we don't want that. And you can see this one here does not have a tuck. You'll see if there's a tuck, the whole bag will tuck. Since we don't have that, we don't have to worry about making any snips. But if that did happen to you, what you want to do is where you stitched, let me show you here. Okay, so here's your stitch line. You want to make small little V cuts from the outside of the hole down to your stitches. They're just relief cuts so that the fabric will fold accordingly. Since this, again, was stitched so close, I am good to go. I don't have any tucks, nothing that is unsightly. So we're going to now take and measure for our rivets. And what I'll do is take my 1-inch ruler, line it up with my 1-inch handle, and from the tuck itself, I want to measure down a 1/2 inch and centered. And I'm going to put a little dot. Then from the tuck up onto the handle, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure up a 1/2 inch and put a dot. And then from that dot, that last dot, I'm going to measure up 1 inch and put one more dot. So I'm centering the dots, obviously, in the handle. And you can see now all the dots are 1 inch away from each other. From here, take a punch and first punch the dots on the handle. Don't try to go through your bag. Because well, at least whenever I do that, I always end up crooked. So do these first. And then I will lay this flat. Take my pen and mark through those holes to the exterior of the bag. And now I know exactly where to place the dots on the exterior of the bag. Now, my punch is not going to fit down in there to make these holes, and it's also not going to fit to make this hole. So I'm going to go over and use my mallet and my manual hole punch to go ahead and punch this hole and these 2 holes. What I'm going to do is punch these 2 holes first. Go ahead and place rivets in there, and that's going to hold the handle nice and straight. So when I go to do this one, this is going to punch through my bag and the back side of my strap. I'll be able to know that it's super straight. So you see here on the back how that's going through the back side of the strap, and then 2 on the bag itself. Okay, so it's just really securing those handles down so that they don't come off, because we certainly don't want that to happen. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my holes, put my rivets, go ahead and set my rivets, do the same thing on this side, and then we'll continue on. So we now have the exterior of the bag complete with all of the rivets on and set. We love these pockets. They fit cell phones wonderfully. This is just such a great bag. So we're going to set this aside and we're going to run through the zipper placket real quick. So you have 4 pieces for your zipper placket, 2 lining and 2 main. I've already put 1/2 inch double-sided tape on all the short ends. On one of the main pieces, we are going to peel back the double-sided, or peel the backing off the double-sided tape on both sides and fold it over the 1/2 inch. Now, if it's easier for you to measure 1 inch down and make a line, you can certainly do that, just to make sure everything's lined up. The first piece it's probably more important on than the others. You'll see why, because we're not really too concerned about getting these measurements exact, because we're just going to make sure they all match up in the end. So on the other main piece and on both lining pieces, we are going to go ahead and just fold over one edge. Okay. Then we're going to take our zipper, and you can go ahead and mark a line about 1 inch from the edge, just to give you some guides as to where to fold the zipper. So you're going to pull that apart, and right on that line, go ahead and pinch the zipper, and then fold that right angle up against the teeth. Put a small pin. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. And the lines are just meant to help you make sure that your teeth are lined up exactly correct here. You don't want your teeth to be off. Now, when we put our zipper pull on and our zipper end on the other side, we can cheat it a little bit if we need to, but only by one tooth, maybe 2 teeth at the most. So it's really important to make sure that these are as even as possible. With the zipper going towards the back, the length of the zipper going to the back, I'm just going to take and just do a little basting stitch here. Okay, made sure I did not hit my pin when I stitched. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can do a hand baste here if you'd prefer. You don't have to use your machine. So here we have it. So on your pieces here, you're going to put 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. So the tape is going to go on just one side of each of these pieces. And the ends that are not folded back yet, I'm not going to put this tape all the way to the end. I'm just going to put it about 1 inch away from the end. And one more. Okay, the piece that has both ends folded back, you're going to peel the backing off the tape and place the end of the zipper about 1/4 of an inch down from the top, or from one of the folded edges. Okay, and then just go ahead and lay the zipper, don't pull it, just lay it down flat. And of course your zipper is going to extend beyond. Okay, so you can see from the front there about how far away that is. Take one of your linings and the edge that's already folded, match up with the edge, one of the edges is folded here. I'm just going to make sure that matches up exactly right, and then lay the lining piece along the back side of the zipper. When we get to the other side, this is not folded yet, so what we want to do is peel the backing off the tape and go ahead and fold it so it's even with the main piece. So if this ends up being more than 1/2 inch, that's fine. If it ends up being less than 1/2 inch, that's fine. It doesn't really matter how much you're folding it here. You just want it to be even. All right, now we're going to stitch. And then from here, open up your zipper. We'll go ahead and clip your end off. And then open up the plackets and put them wrong sides together. Now remember, this zipper placket is right on the top of your bag, so you really want to make sure that it looks good. So take your time, make sure your seam allowance is even when you stitch it together. If it's not, if you find you went a little crooked, don't take it apart. Just pick up where the crooked starts and even it out, if that makes sense. I have to do that sometimes. And the main thing you want to make sure of is that from the right side, your zipper teeth are the same distance from the edge of the placket all the way down. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to top stitch. Now when you top stitch, of course you want to be really careful here. My machine likes to catch the ends. And what I mean by that is here where all the bulk is, you've got, you know, all these layers. Sometimes it likes to drag there. So I'm going to do some hand stitches, and I'm also going to use a piece of faux just to stick under there to protect the project, because I certainly don't want to have any problems with the faux looking bad. So I'm going to top stitch these ends together. And then when I get to the edge, I'm going to turn. And you can see my presser foot is really far off the back here. So I'm going to take my piece of faux and roll it up and make myself a little hump jumper and stick it underneath there. And then protect my project. Take a couple of hand stitches here until I get past my hump, and then stitch. So I have some actual bulk here, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of roll this up, create myself a little hump jumper. Right here I'm going to do a couple of hand stitches. Protect my faux. And then when I get to this open end, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that closed. And there's one side. So we're going to repeat the process for the other side, but of course only one side of the other main piece is folded back. Only one short end. So we're going to take that end and we're going to line it up with the existing piece, making sure it's even, and then go ahead and place our zipper down. So we're going to just make sure everything is lined up. And then don't pull, just go ahead and set your zipper down on top of the faux, or whatever your fabric is. And then you'll see that this end is not folded back, so we're going to go ahead and peel the backing off. fold it back so it's even with the other side. Okay. And then repeat for the lining. Fold that back, make sure it's even. And stitch. I really want to make sure that both sides are about the same distance from the teeth. And then of course as I stitch, I'm also you know, pulling this, try to lay it nice and flat. Go ahead and make my little hump jumper. Take a couple of hand stitches, protect my project. Take a couple more. I feel like I'm still on that hump. There we go. Make the hump jumper one more time. Take a couple of hand stitches. And by doing this, I just ensure that my stitches are even, because sometimes when you have a hump, not only will your foot catch, but sometimes your stitches aren't even. And you have some stitches that end up being smaller than others. And there we have our zipper placket. Looks really good. So go ahead and pull it apart and find the center of each section. And then we're going to set these aside for just a minute. We're going to work on the lining. And in the pattern, I give you the measurements as to how far down to put the pockets. So in my larger pocket, I went ahead and measured 2 inches over. I'm going to make myself a little pen pocket. I always like to carry a pen with me. So we're going to stitch down, over, up, go over 1 stitch and come down, and then come back up over here. On the other lining piece, I went ahead and centered my zipper overlay. And then slightly below that, and again, I give you the measurements in the pattern, I went ahead and put my smaller pocket. I'm not going to divide this smaller pocket. I'm just going to go all the way around. So we're going to go ahead and stitch all this in place now. So let me just move this aside for a second. Go ahead and turn. Turn again. I'm going to turn and come over just one stitch, and that's going to give me a place to put a rivet so that I can secure the pocket. I like to secure the edges of the pockets. I just feel like, you know, the pockets get a lot of use, pulling things in and out all the time, and it doesn't hurt to go ahead and secure those. And you see here I'm using my So Tight magnets. You can get a discount on these magnets. We have a link below for that, and they're great to hold your pockets onto your bag. Now you see how strong they are. Just make sure your fingers aren't in the way when you go to snap them back together, because it does hurt if you get your finger pinched. The other thing is when you take them apart, you're not going to be able to just pull them apart. You have to twist them to pull them apart. Okay. And then I usually just kind of hold it at the ends, let it slide up. And then because my machine's metal, I'm able to just stick them on my machine. They work really great. So there's one side. Let's go ahead and set that aside, and we're going to sew the other side on. Now you see I'm going to sew my pocket and the zipper placket at the same time. I am really bad about if I put my zipper pocket in and then go to sew this pocket on, I always tend to sew my zipper pocket to the back of the bag. So I like to do this in one step and then add the zipper pocket. So we have the slit pocket on. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the zipper overlay. And I'm going to make sure that I do not backstitch on this. Because I'm using a different color thread, it will show up. So I'm just going to pull my threads through the back and tie them off. And I'm using a different color thread here because I did not have anything close to this aqua color in my thread stash. So decided to go with the camel thread, which I think gives it a nice contrast since the handles are camel. I think it works out good. You know, I normally don't do that, but for this bag, I did. I'm going to make sure that my stitches are all lined up. I have to do one more stitch in this direction, and then I'll tie these off. Got a bit of a mess back here. I don't know why, but oh, I see one of my threads. Here we go. One of my threads stitched through the back side of the other thread. Okay, when I tie them off, I like to put a little piece of double-sided tape over the knot just to hold it down, make sure it doesn't come undone. Or you could burn it with a lighter, either way. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and cut the inside of this out. Make sure your tip of your zipper goes underneath your overlay so that you don't accidentally cut that. And then in the back, no need to worry how it looks. We just want it to make sure you don't see it from the right side. We don't want to see any lining peeking out. Okay, so now take your zipper pocket, and pretty much every video I do, I show you how to do this zipper pocket. So I just went ahead and made mine, as I showed you in the beginning of the video. I'm going to peel the backing off the tape, and we're going to center the zipper in the opening. And honestly, this is my least favorite part of bag making. Centering these zippers. I don't know why. I just seem to always have problems with it. Can never quite get it right. And you want to center it from side to side as well as up and down. All right, so now we're going to stitch around the inside, meaning the inside edge here, to hold our zipper in place. Make sure your pocket is open, laying flat like this in the back, or you're going to sew it closed. I could fiddle with that all day. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and stitch. Make sure I start and stop in the same hole. I'm going to pull the threads through the back. I'm going to tie them off, but this time I'll burn the edge because this is going to be on the inside of my pocket, and I certainly don't want to have a piece of double-sided tape in there. Make sure it's good and tight, and then all right, go ahead and pull this top piece down to meet the bottom, lay it flat, and clip your edges. Now we are going to keep the bottom open because we're going to use that to close the bottom of the bag. So cut off the excess from the bottom pocket. It should be just over an inch. and then turn your lining around, pull the side over, and then stitch down, back stitch real good. Then we're going to turn this around, pull this side over, and do the same thing. You can go ahead and cut off any excess. Burn these edges just to make sure no any problems or anything coming apart. And then we have the other side of our lining completed. So take your, I always like to start with the side with my zipper. Take your upper lining and make sure your zippers are closing in the same direction. I like my zippers closing to the left. However, it doesn't matter. If you have your zipper going this way, just make sure you use the other side of your zipper placket so that your zipper's, closing in the same way. You just want these to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to match my centers. And then I will stitch this in place to hold it. And then from here, I'm going to take my upper lining, go ahead and clip it on. And we're going to stitch. Go ahead and leave the seam allowance going towards the top. Open this up and top stitch. You're going to catch that seam allowance underneath as you top stitch. Sometimes right here, because you have a little bit of bulk with your zipper placket, your foot might drag, so you might want to protect that just in case. It's usually when you're going, it's not so bad when you're going up a hill, but when you're coming down a hill, it tends to be where your foot drags. Okay, so we have one side of our lining completed. I like to clip my zipper out of the way so that when we put all this together, we don't have any problems. So I'm going to take the other side of my lining. I'm going to repeat. I'm going to first put this on. I'm also going to slip my key fob underneath, just like this. And then I will put my upper lining and top stitch, and then we'll come back. I went ahead and added rivets for my pockets. And whenever you do that, you always want to put a little bit of Decaville Heavy or Peltex in the back when you're putting on the back of lining. So now that the lining is complete, we're going to go ahead and place these two pieces right sides together. And we want to make sure that our upper linings match. So make sure that that is exactly perfect and go ahead and clip. right at that spot. Now as we stitch our lining, we are going to start with a 1/2 inch seam allowance up here at the top, and then we're going to increase it to about 5/8. And this is going to help us avoid a baggy lining. So on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make sure they match. And then as we stitch, we're also going to start at the point that we want them to match exactly, which means right here at this point. Put my needle in at 1/2 inch, back stitch up to the top, and then come down. Nothing says we have to start at the very tippity top of this bag. So making sure that looks perfect. Go ahead and put my needle in, and now that can't move, that can't shift. And then as I stitch, once I get past this hump here, where my upper lining is, I'm just going to increase my seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to flip this over and we're going to repeat on this side. Go ahead and trim these back, and trim just beyond your upper lining, but not to the top. Just want to get that bulk out of the hump. And that's going to allow us to open up this seam allowance and be able to sew across. It's going to be very difficult to open up a seam allowance this small, so we want to make sure we leave some up top. I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Okay, so from here, we're ready to put the bag together. Since the handles are already attached to the bag, it is going to be a little more difficult to stitch this right sides together, because as I try to stitch right here and clip, I've got some bulk to contend with. So instead, I'm going to do a drop-in lining. So we're going to go through how to do that. Go ahead and take some double-sided tape and place it along the top edge. You can either use 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or whatever you have. Go ahead and put it all the way around the top. And then we're going to fold the edge over, and we're going to use the Decaville or whatever kind of stabilizer you used as a guide. And it's going to give us a nice crisp edge. So I'm just going to fold this right over that stabilizer, and I'm going to do that all the way around. Now you are going to want to do a little dry run, and what I mean by that is before you put this tape on, or at least before you fold this over, you want to make sure that your lining and the main part of your bag fit okay, because if they don't, you're going to adjust the side seams on your lining. Obviously you're not going to change the main part of your bag. All that's already sewn together. The lining's always the best place to make those adjustments. So once you're sure everything fits properly, you can go ahead and adhere your tape down, or adhere your upper portion down. And for the most part, just about, not all, but just about every bag, a lot of the bags you can do a drop-in lining. So because I'm going to do a drop-in lining, the other thing I need to do is to go ahead and finish up my lining. And I kind of did this on the fly, decided to do the drop-in. So I'm going to close the bottom of my pocket, and I'm also going to go ahead and finish my bottom. So I'm just going to turn this around, go ahead and stitch this pocket closed. And then I'm going to stitch my bottom seam. And I'm going to use my larger seam allowance for this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and trim that back. And then I'm going to go ahead and box my corners. So just open up the corner, make sure you match your side seam with your bottom seam. I nest the seams, meaning one set of seam allowances goes in one direction, the other one goes in the other. I'm going to go ahead and clip that. Make sure when you clip the other side, your bottom seam allowance is going in the same direction as it was on the opposite side. That's the only thing I would caution you on there. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch these corners closed. And once they're stitched closed, we'll go ahead and trim them back. Now, on the boxed corner portion, I use the standard 1/2 inch seam allowance. I don't use the larger seam allowance. Quite get to the end here. Let me do that again. And then just go ahead and trim that back. Okay, so now we have our lining complete. I'm going to put some double-sided tape along the top edge of my main part of my bag. Same thing on the inside. I will fold that down over the decaville, and then I'm going to put my lining inside the main part of my bag and clip it around. We'll go ahead to the cylinder arm and stitch it closed. So I'm going to do all that and I meet you over there. So I've got the bag all clipped and ready to go. We're going to go ahead and stitch. I'm going to start in the back and probably start behind one of these strap connectors. So basically what I did, I just went ahead and put the lining inside the bag. Let's see if I can get so you can see it. There's our lining, and clipped it all together. Everything fit great. This bag comes together really nice. And I really just want to make sure that my main part of my bag and my lining stay even at the top as I stitch. You can certainly add some glue or double-sided tape ahead of time if you'd like to make sure that that happens. And then of course you want to make sure you pull your handle out of the way, obviously. So as you can see how close the handle is to the main part of the bag, that's the reason why the drop-in lining is easier here, because if we were doing right sides together, the bag would be struggling to stay together here where the handles are. And I just take my time as I go all the way around. All right, I'm gonna cut the threads and we'll take a look at the bag. So to finish up the bag, I went ahead and put my zipper pull on and my zipper end. You can certainly use a fabric zipper end. You don't need to use a hardware zipper end, but I like to use those. But anyway, here's the bag. Isn't it amazing? This bag is just one of my favorites, and obviously it's one of your favorites too. It's one of our best-selling bags. So we, of course, have our feet on the bottom. We have a slip pocket here that fits a cell phone. We have a slip pocket here in the back that fits a cell phone. And then inside, you see we had all of our zipper and slip pockets. So it's got lots of room, good sized bag. You know, it carries well. It was just a great bag. So for the next week, you can get a coupon code for the Julie. Go ahead and look in the comments below. And until next time, everybody, happy sewing.